Hey, what's going on, my friends, and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Victor, and today I'm going to share with you 5 signs from your higher self that you are on track with your life path, on track with your the greatest, highest path that your soul at this time can possibly be on. I'm going to reveal to you 5 not very mystical, sometimes subtle, but yet legitimate signs from your higher self that you are on the best possible path you could even imagine. And I'm going to give you a little hint. You're on this path, you're on track, as they say, a heck of a lot more often than you think. Number 1, it's not really a sign. It's that there's nothing giving you the indication otherwise, nothing showing you that you're not on track. Whenever we're not on track in life, and correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, look back at your own life. Has this happened to you? Have there been times when you have been off track knowingly, but you knew it knowingly? It's obvious when you're off track. You just know it. You don't even need a sign. You just know it. But because we're living in a time where our higher selves influence can be more recognizable in our day-to-day affairs, you will get signs when you're not on track. And you know what, as I said, we're not really oftentimes not on track. There was a time in my life where I was off track though, and I knew it. This is when I was growing medical marijuana as a career. At one time, this satisfied me, and one time it brought me a lot of joy, and it paid the bills. And it was a good gig. But there came a point in my journey, in my life, where my life purpose just started to become a pressing matter, where I just had this knowing that I have to start sharing on YouTube. I have to start doing the things I've been saying I'm gonna do. But that was scary. It would have been a matter of plunging into the unknown, no guarantee, no map, no idea how to carry out these dreams and visions and visions of my purpose. So what I did is what a lot of people do in these circumstances is I clung to the familiar. I clung to this medical marijuana grow operation that I knew had no business being in my life. I just had this knowing. And anyway, I started getting all these signs, all these problems were happening with my grow operation. I was having these dreams. I was having these times where I'd wake up in the middle of the night with this like pit, this like basketball sized knot in my stomach of anxiety and dread and fear, because I was afraid, because I literally knew I was resisting my calling, resisting the next leg of my journey, and I was resisting for quite a while there. So the point is, if you're just sitting there like really wondering, am I on track? I don't even know if I'm on track. I'm not having any clear messages in my dreams or from my angels or whatever. If there's nothing really shouting at you saying you're not on track, then you can safely assume you are on track. And because we'll say, people you probably have heard say, God is good, our higher self is good, it will sometimes, even though we don't always need it, it'll sometimes give us confirmations and synchronicities to say you are on track anyways. I have this sort of noteworthy one that's kind of funny, and I'll share about it real quick, that happened to me a little while ago. So I always, or at least for the last few years, I like to do certain things periodically that are kind of like an investment in myself. As many of you know, for a while I was doing cryotherapy. That's like you go in these cold chambers, like almost 300 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit. I was doing that for a while. And as of recently, someone gifted me this sensory deprivation tank, a flotation session. That's where you are in these like pods of like 8 to 10 inches of water with like thousands of pounds of Epsom salt. So you're really, really buoyant. The water's heated to 98.6 degrees, so you don't really feel it on your skin. It's light-proof, soundproof, so you feel like you're just floating there in space, deprived of senses. It's a sensory input, really good for you. And anyway, I had this session, right? It was a gift, and I was driving home feeling like freaking like $1 million, feeling blissed out, thinking like, wow, I should do more of that. And as I was thinking that, a car kind of drove by. Now I was on the highway, cars driving by, it's not something that really would normally catch my attention because there's a lot of them obviously. Well anyway, this car had caught my eye for some reason. It just kind of passed me on the left-hand side. And I looked over and the license plate was very synchronistic. You ever see those license plates that say a name and the name means something to you? Well, guess what? It's even more crazy when the name you see by the car that just randomly caught your attention is your own. So I straight up saw this car that drove by with this license plate that said Victor. One word, no last name, just Victor. I was like, anyway, so that was my little funny synchronicity story. Now, it's for me anyway, it doesn't happen that bluntly very often. For me, it was like, Victor, do more of those freaking float sessions. You're on track with this sort of thing you're doing. But sometimes it could be a matter of just having a feeling like you're on track, or seeing like maybe you're thinking about something that's relevant to this direction you're contemplating going in, and then you look over and you see your own angel numbers. We all have numbers that we see repeatedly that produce a feeling of, like check, yes. Good. You're exactly where you're supposed to be in this exact moment, at this exact time on your journey. Congratulations. All the things you've done up in your life have led you to this exact moment where you're right on track. So sometimes your higher self will give you synchronicities that are meaningful to you, sometimes fun and obvious, oftentimes more subtle. Number 3, one of the ways your higher self will communicate to you with just your own in your own body, with your own perception of how something feels, if it resonates or not. And a lot of times you'll feel drawn, we'll pretty much always feel drawn into a lighter, more harmonious energy. And this lighter, harmonious, that's sort of a vague thing to say. It's almost, this could apply to anything. This could apply to something literal, like maybe you walk into a job interview and it just, you look around and it's like decorated in your own style. You got cool paintings on the wall. The people seem like you vibe with them. They're like that. Maybe they're your age, and they're like, hey, what's up? And they greet you really warmly, and you can feel it. And just the total energy of the place collectively it's light. It's like, it feels good and expansive and freeing just to be here. And that's always a sign. Now, sometimes the reason I think we feel this, because sometimes something will feel that way, where energetically it's so obvious, like this is my place. Well, sometimes our mind can interfere with something that could be potentially really good for us and say, well, I don't know. Have you concerned about this? Have you thought about this possibility? And our mind can very easily work us up into a frenzy and then give us that feeling of like inner conflict. Should we take the job? Should we not take the job? It feels right, but I don't know. I have these doubts or these beliefs or whatever. In those circumstances, go with a higher self-influenced information, which again it's the feeling. You're never gonna make a mistake. You're never, ever going to make a mistake when you go towards the energy that you know resonates with you, that you know feels right. Okay, this happened to me, I remember several years ago. And I was in the same kind of mental predicament where I got married, okay? I was like 23 years old, and my father-in-law is a very wealthy man, and he bought my wife and I this beautiful, brand new, like decked out house. And I was 23, my wife was 22, we were like these young kids living in this awesome house, pretty much not even really having to work if we don't want to. He paid all our bills, paid for our food, everything we needed was paid for. And we were like living like kings and queens in our early 20s. But I had like a spiritual awakening at that time, and I started to feel like, man, my neighborhood, the people in it, it's not our vibe. It just wasn't I'm not gonna talk negatively about the circumstance, but it became clear that we don't like it here. It feels very weird. It feels very awkward. Our neighbors don't seem to like us very much. We trigger them and they trigger us. It just started to feel bad. But on paper, it was like, no, we should be happy. How are we just these spoiled little brats not happy with this circumstance most people would die to have? So it was like, I don't know. So anyways, we started driving just on a hunch out west, like a half hour away from where we were living, to this other location. This other side of town, basically. And as we would literally cross a threshold, this certain road we'd cross, and we were like now in this other part of the city, or a few cities over, it felt different. It felt like, wow. we just wanted to spend all our time over there. Every weekend we would just drive all the way out there just to go out to eat or something silly, or go to a local park around there, just because it felt right. And on the flip side, when we were driving back, as we got closer to our city where we lived, it was like we could literally feel the heaviness, the heavy, denser energy of the location itself. But our mind was saying, you can't just move. That would be stupid. You got this house paid for. You don't have to do anything. You can live it up the rest of your life and not do anything. But in our body, it was like, no, we got to make this move, even though it's going to piss off the father-in-law. It's going to kind of, it was sort of on paper, it seemed like a foolish thing to do, but we knew it. And eventually, of course, as you know, we're not there anymore. We took the plunge and we made the move. And man, our life has improved dramatically ever since that point. Number 4, when you're on track and you're making the right moves, especially when you're doubting yourself, again, from the mind, but you know it's the right move, life will tend to unfold very smoothly. Your higher self seems to have a positive influence on the way your life unfolds. And when you're on track, things go well, they go smoothly. Like, for example, as I was just talking about that same reference, we eventually, of course, decided to sell the house. And even though it seemed abrupt, our friends and family thought that it was a wild, random move for us to do. It made no sense to them. Didn't even make sense to us, honestly, mentally. But we made the move. And at that time, the market was doing really poorly, the housing market. And there were people in our same neighborhood sitting on their house trying to sell it for like 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9 months at a time. And we were like, oh my goodness. We were thinking like we could be stuck here for a long ass time. Our house sold in that first weekend. We had an open house, like 4 or 5 viewings, multiple offers. We sold it for more than we had listed it for. And it was like wham, bam. It was just really, really, really smooth. We were literally out of the house, traveling the world at that point, or the country anyway, like a matter of a few weeks later. It was that fast. So when you finally allow yourself to go in the direction that you already know feels and is right for you, then it's almost like life just swoops you up with its arms and says, okay, finally, you're letting life be easier now, and you'll get to experience that, and life goes a lot more smoothly when you yield to what you know is the right move. And lastly, the main way your higher self will communicate to you, it's not through these flashy mystical visions and whatnot that sometimes happen to some people because it's relevant for them at that point in their journey. Most of the time, it's way more simple, basic, and just fundamental than that. Usually it's with the feeling, unmistakable feeling of genuine excitement. This reminds me of another time I moved. So anyway, that whole journey I was describing earlier eventually led me to me and my family living in San Diego. That was like our dream location. We were in Michigan before that. It was cold. We didn't like the climate. And San Diego was bright and sunny, and there was mountains and oceans and cool people. It was like, oh my God, we made it. And we really thought we found our home. Finally, we can stop searching. And then one day I went to visit my friend, who's now my best friend, Aaron Dowdy. It was my first time meeting him in person. I went out to visit him in Las Vegas. He lives in Las Vegas. And after one day, my wife and I were like, what would it be like to live here? That sounded interesting. And just surprising it was, even me, someone who had already thought he found his home, already thought he did all these went through all these higher self hoops and obstacles and got to like the promised land. It's like, why am I all of a sudden feeling super excited about the idea of moving to Las Vegas? It made no sense. It's like, now people are gonna really think we're crazy. But there was just like, I can't deny that my wife and I, when we would talk about it, we felt excitement, expansiveness, just a genuine, like, this could be fun, excitement kind of energy. But again, sometimes your excitement, you'll find, will conflict with the plans your mind had set out for you. But our mind is not the source of guidance to defer to in these days, okay? Because the mind, it's as powerful and effective and helpful as it is, a lot of the times it's not the end all be all, but it thinks it is. And we've been sort of programmed and conditioned to always think of our mind as the way to go about things. But there's this new, way better, way wiser source of guidance welling up from within you in your most natural, in a very natural way, in a very organic and natural way, in ways that are so human, familiar to you, that many people miss them. Many people ignore them, okay? But when you feel, I'm not talking about there's certain guilty pleasures I think we all have, and if that was waved in front of my face right now, there'd be like, ooh, that'd be fun to do that. That's not what I'm talking about. There's a difference between that and satisfying a craving versus a genuine, childlike, joyful, expansive excitement. That's what I'm talking about. And you have to be honest with yourself. It's not that hard to discern if you're even a little honest with yourself, but I'm talking about the genuine excitement. Whenever you feel that for anything, that's the direction you always want to go. I literally heard this advice from a guy named Bashar. He's a channeler. I've talked about him many times on my channel. And this is like his whole premise. Follow your highest excitement until you can take it no further without any expectation. That's the formula for life. That's the formula for enlightenment, formula for expanding your consciousness, raising your vibration, ascending, all those things. You do that little thing he just said, and that's always resonated with me. And I heard that for the first time back in 2011, and I've literally based my life on that very foundational little formula. And my life has expanded and improved in ways I could have never possibly predicted. I could have never possibly conceived. And it continues to do that because I follow my excitement. Now, a lot of people, again, they're getting this powerful, like assisting higher self influence, but they're waiting for something more mystical than it needs to be before they get on board with it. I'm telling you, man, you go towards a lighter energy. You consider the synchronicities of confirmation as a bonus. They're not necessary. They're a blessing, and some people get them more than others, but they're not necessary. It's just that lightness and that excitement, and you go in that direction, period.